What is going on, guys? Fitcho here, and welcome to something a little bit different today. Now, I'm actually doing a top 5 with SmoothRacing. Do you want to say hello?
Hello everyone, and we've got our shields up because controversy is incoming.
Oh, I am not looking forward to reading the comments of this video. We are doing top 5 current F1 drivers. Shit is about to hit the fan, I think. But go check out SmoothRacing. A link to his channel will be in the description. We also did another video on his channel, so that will be worth checking out after this video. But anyway, let's jump straight into this list. What is your number 5?
Well, okay, my number 5 then, this was so close, and of course this is just our opinion.
Yes, it's our opinion. It is important to note.
Just my number 5 is Jenson Button, of course, 2009 World Champion. And I always see Jenson Button as quite an underrated driver, really. People seem to forget just how quick he's been over this past decade, and he's probably been quite unlucky, not to win another World Championship, really. Just like our number 4 on this list as well, but yeah, Jenson Button then, he went up against Lewis Hamilton between 2010 and 2012, and he outpointed him. He's gone up against some of the toughest drivers in Formula 1. Of course, has Fernando Alonso as a teammate now, and, he certainly never gets really an easy teammate. He had Rubens Barrichello, of course, at Honda, and he's been tested against some of the very best in the sport, and he's come out on top as well on many occasions. His inconsistency, though, does hold him back from joining this kind of elite 3 in my top 5. He's never really had the ultimate pace, or certainly in qualifying, of the likes of Hamilton, Alonso and Vettel. But yes, Jenson Button is my number 5 on this list.
He does have the pace over some of those guys in the wet, though. He is a master of wet conditions.
Oh yeah, definitely. he knows exactly when to pit for into his wets. He knows exactly when to stay out. Most of the time, anyway.
Yeah, just look at Canada 2011, for example. The wet
exactly.
conditions.
He's going to go down as one of the most, famous drivers, probably just for that, really.
Yeah, but surprisingly enough, Jenson Button, my favourite driver on the grid, actually doesn't make it into this top 5 list. But in 5th place for me is Max Verstappen. This is a controversial one. Some people think he's like the next best thing. He's going to be absolutely insane and rate him really highly. And some people think he's really overhyped. But I genuinely think this guy is a seriously good talent. And even after only one season, he makes it into my top 5 list. He had some mistakes throughout his first season, especially the mistake in Monaco, but he has big balls, pretty much. Some of his defensive moves and overtaking moves, it's out of this world, but he has the pace, he has the ability to battle, and he's, like I said, he's just got the big balls, and he's just really good, and I think, especially considering he's so young, he has so much potential going forward that he just gets into number 5 over Jenson.
Yeah, he's certainly a big talent for the future. Missed out just on my list just because he's only been in F1 for one season. I can see why you had him on your list, but for me, he was out-qualified by Carlos Sainz Jr. over his debut season. Yes, he pulled off some good overtaking moves, but, really, I think that doesn't make an ultimate F1 driver, but certainly it does show great potential, and I have to agree, Max Verstappen is probably going to be, a future, not just a future champion, but a future multiple world champion. I'd probably say then my number 4 is Kimi Raikkonen, very close between 4 and 5 on my list. Although he's had a torrid time of it recently in F1 in 2014 and 2015, before that he was so good. I mean, let's not forget 2012 to 2013 he was with the Lotus team, had Grosjean, a very quick teammate. And, Kimi Raikkonen was one of the best drivers over that period, and he had a 2-year break away from F1. He came 3rd, of course, in 2012, and of course, let's not forget he won the championship back in 2007. Didn't quite have the pace or consistency in 2008, but certainly looking further back with his time with McLaren, arguably he should have won in both 2003 and 2005, but unreliable cars just held him back from becoming double or even maybe triple world champion. Kimi Raikkonen, an exceptional talent in both qualifying and in the race, just like Jenson Button, of course, had that phenomenal, one race, of course, in 2005 Japan. But it's not just that, he's impressive in pretty much all conditions as well. He's impressive in qualifying, and just like Jenson Button, he's gone up against the likes of Fernando Alonso, the likes of Sebastian Vettel, the likes of Felipe Massa, Montoya. He's really tested himself against some of the best. And unlike the top 3, though, he hasn't always beaten them, and that just kind of holds him back from entering that kind of elite caliber in F1 at the moment.
Yeah, Kimi, he's a brilliant driver, don't get me wrong. He's, like you've said, back through his career, he's been really good. But he doesn't make my top 5 just mainly because of the recent times. I know it's maybe a bit unfair on him, but of course, the recent times sort of overshadow the past in your memory, so I sort of remember those more recent times a bit more, and he hasn't been the same Kimi recently, and he doesn't make my list. But for me, in 4th place is Fernando Alonso. Yes, he didn't have a good last season, but obviously that was not his fault, due to that very, very unreliable McLaren Honda. I want to go on a Honda rant, but I won't. That'll be for another video or something. But he's a very, very good driver, of course, a double world champion back with Renault in 2005 and 2006, and he's just so damn good. Of course, he had that stint at McLaren in 2007. That's one to be forgotten, but of course he was very close to the championship there. But of course he did have that very long stint with Ferrari, coming very, very close to the world title in both 2010 and 2012, and he's still now, even in that unreliable McLaren Honda, one of the world's best drivers, and that's the reason he makes it into 4th on my list.
Yeah, he's on number 3 on my list. Some people might have him in the top 2, some people might even have him as the best driver in Formula 1. Slightly overrated for me, Fernando Alonso. People were kind of claiming he's the best driver ever. He always gets the best out of the car. And that particular argument was used, with his time at Ferrari. But really, people comparing him to Felipe Massa. Felipe Massa did not have an equal car to Fernando Alonso. The whole of Ferrari's resources were all, behind Fernando Alonso. And yes, okay, he didn't have the superior car in 2012, but he was leading the championship by a long, long way and just kind of bottled it, really. His, kind of average qualifying as well really held him back. Yes, he got it back in the races, but he just couldn't hook it up over one lap in 2012. And although he was arguably the star of that season, in the end he didn't win it. He didn't win it in 2010 either, when he had one of the best cars. He probably didn't have the best car in qualifying, but certainly in the race he had that Ferrari was really, really good. But a couple of mistakes and just kind of not taking his chances when he should have done, especially earlier on in the season, really hurt Fernando Alonso. It's 2010, 2012, he probably should have won, and he really didn't. And then of course 2007 against Hamilton, a rookie Hamilton, he gets beaten on countback by this rookie, and really it wasn't just it wasn't the fact that Hamilton was faster than Alonso, it was the fact that Alonso was just going about it completely the wrong way. His kind of ego and really got in the way, and he probably thought he was better than he really was. But of course, still a double world champion and still, easily one of the best drivers on the grid.
Yeah, that 2007 season is one to be forgotten for Fernando, definitely. But moving swiftly on to the top 3 for me, in 3rd place, I can already see the hate comments, is Lewis Hamilton. He is a brilliant driver. He's been doing very, very well in recent times, of course, with Mercedes absolutely dominating against Nico Rosberg. But he hasn't always been the best driver. He's a good driver, but his ego and his mentality towards things gets to him sometimes. If we think back in particular to that 2011 season, that issues he had with Felipe Massa throughout the season, it's little things like that sort of take away from Lewis and some of the odd things he does like that, but albeit he is a brilliant driver, of course, winning the championship in 2008, 14 and 15, but he didn't have to go through some of the struggles with the lower and midfield teams, of course, coming straight into McLaren. He's had a bit more of an easier run than some drivers, especially being picked up at such a young age. And, like I said, he's had a few mishaps where he's just lost the plot mentally, but albeit he is a very, very quick driver and makes it into 3rd on my list.
Yes, and Lewis Hamilton is 2nd on my list, of course. Triple world champion now, of course, winning championships in 2008, 2014 and 2015. Of the current hybrid era, he's probably the best on the grid and one of the quickest, certainly up there with my number 1. But, Hamilton, like you mentioned, in 2011, he was just getting involved in silly incidents with Felipe Massa. Just like Fernando Alonso, he had one of the quickest cars in 2012, and yes, it was unreliable, but really, he didn't take his chances. He was on pole for the first 2 races of the season, and failed to convert either of those into a win. And just, more instances like that throughout the season, really, with Hamilton just not taking his chances. And it's so easy to forget that, we can just try and see past this kind of supreme Lewis Hamilton that we've seen in the past 2 years, because really he wasn't, nearly as good as he is currently. And of course, he does, I hate to use his argument, but of course he does have a supreme car. We're judging him against Nico Rosberg, of course, who's no slouch, but certainly is not one of F1's elite. So Hamilton then is number 2 on my list.
So moving on to the top 2, in 2nd place for me is Daniel Ricciardo. Now I know what some of you are thinking, he hasn't been around that long, and he hasn't had that competitive a car. He hasn't got really good results. Of course, he was the only driver to win a race in 2014 other than the Mercedes, but I guess in a way there isn't that much facts and logic being based on this decision. There is a bit of bias because I'm Australian, but he is one of the best drivers on the grid. There is no doubt about that, and one of the best personalities around, and he's been doing really well. He had a good stint with Toro Rosso and then had a very good season in 2014 against reigning four-time champion Sebastian Vettel, really dominating him in truth, and he hasn't had the best run this year, or last year I should say, actually ending up being beaten by the young Daniel Kvyat, but he is still out now a very, very good driver. But like I said, there might be a slight bit of bias in this decision, but this is just my personal opinion like we stated at the start.
My number one then is Sebastian Vettel, of course, a four-time world champion and current Ferrari driver. You know, he's been one of the best drivers in Formula One in current times. He really does get the best out of the car. And yes, okay, he has had a dominant car, in recent times, but really, it hasn't been that dominant. Yes, okay, he had a dominant car in the back end of 2013 and in 2011 as well. But really, if you look at 2012 in particular, Vettel didn't have a dominant car until really the latter end of the season, and he really got the most out of it and was just kind of plugging away, picking up those kind of top 5 results week in, week out. Similar with 2010 as well, where he just snuck through, won 3 of the last 4 races, where really Webber and Alonso just completely bottled it. And really, Vettel just snuck through, showed his true class, and won that 2010 championship. And of course, was just carrying on with that momentum all the way up until this kind of new hybrid era. Had 2015 been like his 2014, he would have not been this number one on my list. But the fact that he's just got straight back up there, proved himself to be one of the best drivers, of the 2015 season, really proves to me that he could be, the world champion in 2016 or 2017, once again.
Yeah, and my number one is also Sebastian Vettel. You summed it up pretty much perfectly there, Josh. There was one thing you did miss back in 2008, that Italian Grand Prix where he managed to get that shock win in the Toro Rosso, proving his skill at a very, very young age. And again, going on 2010, again, he didn't have the best car. It was very closely matched throughout the 2010 season, but like you said, he just took his chances and made the most of what he had to come away with the championship. He did have his few odd moments, but with his sort of losing the plot, not to the same extent as Hamilton, in particular the Turkey 2010 incident, if you remember his team radio.
What the f*** are we doing here? We're wanting to win the championship. What a stupid action! I'm going home.
And he's sort of showing his age there, but he has matured a lot there. Again, he did have a dominant car in 2011, but then going on to 2012, the Red Bull wasn't the best car that year, but he was sort of favoured by some of the mechanical issues from some of his competitors. But again, he took his chances, showed his class, came away with the championship. 2013, he did have the most dominant car towards the end of the season. And 2014, like you said, it was a bit of a meltdown year, a bit of a disaster for him, but made the move to Ferrari, got his mojo back, and managed to pick up 3 race wins in the Ferrari, and is looking like the best Vettel we've had in a while.
Yeah, definitely. He's certainly back to his best, and Hamilton's going to really have to give it all, really, to beat him in 2016. And really, these next few years, we could see a really, really nice narrative between, Vettel versus Hamilton. And hopefully, we could see a lot of these young guys, like you mentioned, the likes of Ricciardo, the likes of Grosjean, the likes of Verstappen coming up, and hopefully challenging these guys. And, we'll probably see Alonso retiring soon. So I think there is, a real...
Vandoorne coming in.
Stoffel, Vandoorne, of course, Esteban Ocon. There's plenty of young drivers coming through. There's big talent, and really, if we did this list in another 5 years, I think our top 5 could be very, very different.
Definitely, it could be very, very different. Like we said, there is a lot of young talent coming through in the next few years. Like I said, Stoffel, Vandoorne, and I could go on with the list, but that's where I think I'm going to end today's video. I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. A link to Josh's channel will be in the description, and there'll also be a link to the video we did over on Josh's channel, which was top 10 liveries of 2016, so go check that out. I hope you guys have enjoyed. Thanks, Josh, for being on this video. If you have enjoyed this video, make sure you smash the hell out of the like button. If you are new to the channel, please hit the subscribe button. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.